We're going to look at setting up a mobile device with Filmic Pro so that it records good quality video. When you open the app, you're greeted with this interface. There's a bunch of icons on the screen. The important ones are the circle and the rectangle. Circle controls automatic exposure. If I move it from bright to dark, you'll see the exposure changes. And the rectangle controls your point of focus. Wherever you put it on will be what the software focuses on. We want to set up our mobile device in the same way that we do our DSLR cameras. We're going to choose the settings icon, which is the cog at the bottom right, and that launches the settings window. To set up our mobile device, we want the settings to be the same as what we use with our DSLRs or the Red or some other cameras, which is 1920 by 1080, 25 frames a second, and 1/50th shutter speed. We're going to look at the resolution first. It's top left-hand side. We're going to click on that. And we can see at the top we have aspect ratio, 16:9. You can use 1:1 if you're recording something for Instagram. And then 239:1 on the right-hand side is a very epic widescreen look, but we're going to stick with the standard, which is 16:9 on the top left-hand side. The next thing we're going to look at is the resolution. At the moment it's set to 1080p, but by using the arrows you can navigate to different resolutions. You can start all the way down at 540p, 720p, 1080p, 2K, 3K and 4K on this particular device, and it depends on the phone you're using, but we're going to use the standard, which is 1080p. At the bottom is the quality settings or the bit rate. There's a standard setting, which is what the device will normally record with the in-phone camera app, but Filmic Pro allows a higher quality bit rate, which is first of all Filmic quality, which I believe is 30 megabits a second, and then the highest is Filmic Extreme, which is 50 megabits a second. So this is the same as putting our DSLR on high quality movie recording. All right, touch off the screen to go back, and we'll go to the settings menu again. And we're going to look at frame rate. Again, 1080p at 25 frames a second. You can see you can change the frame rates at the top. 25, 30, 48, up to 120 frames a second for slow motion if you need to. The important thing here is to make sure that when we set our frame rate, we want the capture and the playback to be exactly the same. So let's choose 25 frames a second and make sure that we have 25 frames per second capture and 25 frames per second playback. Touch off again and we go back. We'll look at the audio setting here, which gives you the sample rate, and also you can choose which microphone you'd like to use for recording. In this case we're at the bottom, but we can change to the front microphone or any microphone that is currently plugged into your mobile device. We'll put it back to the bottom one, and our sampling rate is 48 kilohertz, which is the standard sampling rate that we use. Touch off again. We're going to look at the device menu next. The device has a bunch of settings that are useful. The two we're going to look at are orientation lock, which locks the orientation in the widescreen or the horizontal view, and doesn't matter if you rotate the phone or the device, the interface will not switch and go to the vertical view, so no vertical video recording. And down the bottom there's another one which is called volume keys trigger recording, and that allows you to use your external volume keys to start and stop the recording. So that's kind of useful. We'll take that and tap off to go back to the menu. Now there's a couple of other things. There's a guide that you can put on that gives you the thirds guide for aiding in composition when you're filming. And then we have stabilization, which is a stabilizer which will smooth out the camera move when you move it. If you're doing handheld work or mobile work, put this on. If it's on a tripod, leave it off like it is with me at the moment. Now, once you've set all these settings, you don't want to have to do this every single time. So the next area we're going to look at is the presets area. The presets is at the top right-hand side. And what this does is once you've set your settings, it allows you to save these as a preset so that you can just load that preset every time you are ready to film. So save current settings as a preset. You do that, it will ask you to give your preset a name. So you can do different presets. We're going to call this 1080p 25 or 1080-25. We save that, and there's the preset there. So when we start up our program, we just click on our settings tab, our presets, choose that, load the preset, and now those settings are in place. The ones that you did, 16:9, 1080p, 25 frames a second, and audio. So that's very convenient. You don't have to do that every time. So we usually shoot at 1080p 25 at 1/50th of a second shutter. If you go to the bottom left-hand side, there's a little wheel icon there. If you hit that, you get two wheels pop out from either side. On the left-hand side, you can see we've got two numbers, 145 and 125th. The top one is ISO, the bottom one is your shutter speed. We want to set our shutter speed to 1/50th and leave it there. But when you move this wheel, which allows you to change, you can see that both numbers are changing, both the ISO and the shutter speed. And this is the software trying to get best exposure with both. We want to lock one of them, the ISO, by touching it. It will go red when we touch it, and that means it won't change. So if we move the wheel now, only the shutter speed is changing. So we want to set this to what we want, which is 1/50th, and then we touch the shutter speed to lock that. That will go red, and now only the change can happen with the ISO setting, which is what we want. Now we'll set white balance. The three colored wheels at the bottom, hit that and you get this window. At the bottom you can see the presets, like on the DSLRs you have incandescent and sunlight and a cloud and fluoro. You can also change the color of the scene by dragging this wheel around. And there is also an auto white balance. So once it's set, you can click AWB, it will make the change. Click it again and it will lock that, but it will turn that off after you've finished shooting. So you'll shoot a shot and it will go back to normal. The best way is just to stay with the preset. Below white balance you have profiles. You will have natural and dynamic. These other two, flat and log, come with an in-app purchase. Choose natural, it's the most normal looking one. The dynamic one tends to be high contrast and crush the blacks. Below this is a saturation and vibrance. You don't really need to touch this. Next we're going to look at focus. How do you set focus? We've always looked at the rectangle in the middle of the screen that will do autofocus. Anything that you put the rectangle on, the software will focus on. This is good for run and gun situations. You can put it in the middle of the screen and anything that goes into that rectangle will be focused on. But we want a little more control of that, so you can actually point it at something and touch it again that will lock that focus. And it doesn't matter if you move the camera around, that focus will stay locked. Another way is to manually focus, which is if you rotate the focus ring on the right hand side, you will see that the focus will go in and out like a rack focus. For specific focus, you can choose a part of the frame, zoom in, then choose your focus wheel and make sure it's in as sharp focus as you can get, which is about there, and then click the zoom and zoom back out. And what you will see is that item is now in focus. That's similar to how we focus with our DSLRs. We can now start recording, and we do that with the button at the extreme bottom right, the big white button. You can press it, start recording, and the seconds that you have been recording are ticking away in the middle of the frame. To stop, just touch it again. If I want to review what I've just recorded, I can touch the play button. And what you can see here is the latest one at the top and the earliest one on the bottom. So here's the one we just recorded. I touch it, it will load up and play.